What's going on, guys? Jason Maxwell, the rocket scientist here from jmaxfitness.com, and I help guys get bigger, stronger, and leaner. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to get bigger arms with blood flow restriction training. So a quick story for all you guys. A few years ago, I was at the doctor's office. I had to give some blood. So she wrapped this mini elastic band around my arm, the nurse did, and she went to go get a needle, and it turns out there was no needles left in her office. So she went and she had to go to the storage room. So I was just in the office sitting by myself with my arm wrapped, and I looked down and I noticed my arms were getting super veiny. So being the bro that I am, I started just playing around, squeezing my fist and making my arms pop. And I was noticing I was just getting a pump from just being wrapped. And what was happening was the elastic band was wrapped around my arm so that blood was able to go into the muscle, but blood wasn't able to exit the muscle. And I was like, man, this would be amazing if I could train with it. But then in the back of my mind, some kind of safety conscience back there was saying, yo, Jason, you're stupid, man. If you train doing this, you're going to lose your arms and you're going to have to get your arms amputated. And I was like, yeah, good point. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be stupid. But then a few months later, some research fell onto my lap about blood flow restriction training. And I was reading it and I was like, this is that exact thing that I was thinking of doing. Turns out it is really safe to do, and it works insanely well at building your arms and getting a huge pump. Essentially, it's like taking a balloon and hooking it up to your kitchen sink and then cranking on the water, and boom, the water starts filling up the balloon. It's getting engorged, it's getting bigger. That exact thing is happening to your arms when you use blood flow restriction training. So here's the method I like to use. First of all, you're going to take either knee wraps or wrist wraps or voodoo bands. Personally, I just take one knee wrap, and because the knee wraps are wide, what I do is I just cut one in half, and then I have these thinner bands or thinner wraps. And then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap them on your upper arms near the armpits. So it's going to be above the biceps and triceps, but underneath the deltoid, kind of where that deltoid comes into the arm. You're going to wrap there with a perceived tightness of 7 out of 10. Now, obviously, this takes a little bit of trial and error, but eventually you will get it right. Essentially, you want to wrap tight enough so the blood is able to get into the muscle, but the blood isn't able to exit the muscle. So you want it to pool in the muscle. And if you do it right, you'll start to get a small pump, and your arms will start to get veiny just by wrapping your arms before even training them. So a funny story about this, my very first time using blood flow restriction training, what it is was I wrapped them way too tight. They were so tight that the blood wasn't even able to get into the arms. And I went about training, and then I had this rash on my arms for like 2 days just because what happened was I ended up not letting any blood get to the muscle. Now, this is when it can be dangerous. So what I say is, instead of trying to wrap too tight, just play around so you can make sure that the blood is going into your muscle and you're getting the pump. After you have wrapped, here's what I want you to do. Do 4 sets of 15 reps of easy bar curls, and I want you to rest 30 seconds in between the sets. You're going to use a weight that is 20 to 30% of your 1 rep maximum, which is approximately your 30 rep max. And this is without wrapping your arms, your 30 rep max. So if you loaded up the easy bar curl and someone put a gun to your head without being wrapped and they said, I want you to do 30 reps, that's your 30 rep maximum, whatever weight you use for that. And after these 4 sets of 15 reps, what's going to happen is you're going to have the biggest pump of your life, like huge, insane pump. And here's the thing. You'll have to play around with the weights and play around with how tight you're going to wrap, because if you use it too heavy, you're not going to be able to do anywhere near 15 reps on the last set of 4 reps. That last set of 15 reps, on that 4th set, what's going to happen is you're going to be in so much pain. The muscle is going to be burning like crazy, but you should still be able to get to at least 12 reps. If you can't do that, the weight is too heavy, or you might have wrapped too tight. You'll know if you wrap too tight if you're not getting a pump. So as soon as you finish your 4 sets of 15 reps, I want you to immediately unwrap your arms, get the blood flowing, do the Arnold shake in the arms, and what's going to happen is you're going to get the blood going back into your arms because you don't want to cut off the circulation too long. Now, after like 3 to 5 minutes, then what you can do is you can repeat the process using cable triceps pushdowns. That's a great way of finishing your workout. It only takes 4 minutes per body part, and you get an insane pump in your biceps and triceps. But you're probably wondering what makes blood flow restriction training so special. Now here's where we get into a bit of the research, but I'm going to make it really clear and easy to understand for you. And basically, blood flow restriction training for your arms works so well due to 3 reasons. First of all, blood flow restricted arms increases the muscle protein synthesis in your arms. So muscle protein synthesis is basically the rebuilding of your arms after you break them down. So if you can rebuild the muscle, then your arms are going to grow back bigger and stronger, and your arms are going to grow fast. Obviously, this happens if you're not using blood flow restriction training, but blood flow restriction training seems to have a funny benefit of increasing protein synthesis in the trained muscle with lighter weights. The second reason blood flow restriction training works so well is because it diminishes myostatin gene expression. So guys, this might seem like I'm throwing around a lot of bullshit science words, but here's what you need to know. Myostatin exists in your body and it tells your muscles to stop growing. It's basically your body's way of stopping you and saying, bro, you're getting too big. I'm going to stop the muscle growth here. But if you can diminish this myostatin gene expression, then you're telling your muscles that it's okay to grow bigger, so your arms will grow bigger than traditional training. And that's one of the hugest benefits of blood flow restriction training, because you're using lighter weights, you're using your 30 rep max, but you're also able to build muscle with light weights. Think about this for a second. Think of how easy it can be to add in blood flow restriction training to any program you're doing and how you can reap the benefits of building bigger arms. Now, the third reason why blood flow restriction training works so well is because it gives you a bigger arm pump, and it does so very quickly. Now, a bigger pump triggers the muscle growth, and it does so via 2 methods. One of them is metabolic stress, and the second one is mechanical muscle tension. So when a muscle is pumped up, it expands the muscle cells because think of that water balloon. It's just expanding, and the outside of that water balloon has a lot of tension. The same thing is happening in your muscles. It's providing a lot of tension in the muscle, and this tension signals the muscle that it needs to grow to accommodate this larger muscle. Now, on top of this, blood flow restriction training produces a lot of metabolic stress. And that's essentially the burn that you're feeling, the pump, all of those things. And this also signals muscle growth. So in turn, this tells your muscle cells to enhance protein synthesis and satellite cell activation. And the one thing you should know about satellite cells is the more satellite cells you have in your muscle, the higher potential that you have for your arms to grow. So using blood flow restriction training increases the satellite cells in your biceps and triceps when you're using it on your biceps and triceps, and then that gives you a higher potential of muscle growth. So in the end, if you were to clone yourself and both you and your clone did the exact same program, but the only thing that you did differently was you used blood flow restriction training on your arms, well, I can guarantee that your arms are going to be bigger than your clones. So it's a way of out-training your genetics. It's a way of getting the maximum muscle possible in your arms, getting an insane pump. It's a lot of fun, and it works really well at building big arms. On top of this, the pump you get from using blood flow restriction training is probably one of the most intense and satisfying pumps I've ever felt. And it's going to be the most intense and satisfying pumps you've ever felt. It's incredible. And if you've ever seen the movie Pumping Iron, Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about this. He talks about the greatest feeling you can ever feel is that pump. And it's so true. He says that it's so satisfying. It's the most satisfying feeling you can get in the gym. And then he starts talking about how the pump is so satisfying, it feels like it's just as satisfying as coming. So he just goes on and he says, it's fantastic. It's heaven. Oh, terrible accent, but whatever. He's like, imagine how I'm feeling. I'm coming every day and every night. It's fantastic. And so he's saying, he gets a pump at the gym and that feels like he's coming. He goes home and he has sex with his girlfriend, and then he's coming there. So he's coming all the time. And it's kind of funny, but if you've ever gotten a big pump, you know it's kind of true. It feels incredible. So that's another reason why blood flow restriction training is just so much fun. Now you're probably wondering, is this even safe? And that's a valid point, because as I was telling you a couple years ago, I didn't try blood flow restriction training because I thought I would, cut off the circulation to my arms, and then I would have to get my arms amputated, and then I'd be walking around with 2 nubs all the time. But it turns out the research shows that it's very safe. You just need to make sure that you're not wrapping too tight. So as I was saying, play around with wrapping your arms, and if after your first set, if you're not getting a pump, or you're not starting to get blood into the arms, it means you've wrapped too tight. The danger here is just wrapping too tight. So if you've wrapped too tight, if you're not getting a pump by your first set of 15 reps, then you just need to loosen it. That's the easiest way of adjusting. Don't be an idiot here. Don't keep your arms wrapped for like 24 hours and then you wake up and your arms are blue and black and they're cold and you've just killed your arms. Don't be stupid. Play around with it. If after your first set you're not getting a pump, then you've wrapped too tight. It's as simple as that. Maybe though, if you wrap too light, then you're not getting a pump, but it's pretty obvious if it feels tight or not. If it feels tight and you haven't got a pump in the first set, it means it's too tight. If it feels loose and you haven't gotten a pump in your first set, it means it's too loose. So just use some common sense here. It's super safe if you use it appropriately, and research shows this. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to the gym and use this blood flow restricted arms protocol. If you liked it, I've actually created a 4-week done for you program for specializing your arms, and it's called blood flow restricted arms. So essentially it's a high frequency arm specialization program that uses blood flow restriction training on your arms, and test subjects who've used this have gained up to 1 inch on their arms in 4 weeks. So we know it works really well. If you want to grab that program, just go to www.jmaxfitness.com/BFR. So guys, Jason Maxwell, the rocket scientist from jmaxfitness.com, and I'll see you guys next time.